Welcome, new ARES operators. Today I thought I would answer the most common comment I always get, and it's particularly with short inner barrel AEGs. As you know, there's a VZ.58 compact that uses roughly a 200 millimeter inner barrel. And for the Amoeba series, if you're using the pistol series, they tend to use very short inner barrels, particularly the CCP and CCC. They use about 103 millimeter stock inner barrel. And the question I usually get is, how do I get 400 FPS out of these guns? So I thought I would answer this question by showing what I would do. So let's get to the parts that I would use. All right. So going over the parts that I would use, let's start from the outer external stuff first. Of course, I'm gonna go for the best seals, and for short barrel inner barrels, I usually like using the Matrix Prometheus type barrels, and they're 603 Type 4 barrels because they seem to work better with the reaps bucking. Because I believe the outer diameter of the barrels might be a little bit thicker, so therefore the reaps bucking, the inner nub, doesn't really, protrude too far inward that causes overhop. So that's why I like using this setup. And I always use an ARES metal M4 hop-up unit just because I don't like flexing. You probably really don't get really that much FPS gain out of it, but normally most of your gain will come from the reaps bucking in the inner barrel. I estimate roughly 10 FPS, not always, but there is a small FPS gain. Now let's go into the battery and the motor I would use. The AEG we're going to use for this short barreled test it's going to be my Amoeba series M4 CCP. Because I'm going to be using a M130 spring, I want probably a good torquey motor. Any good torque motor you could use. And because we're going to be using 130, like I said, 100 M130 spring, I'm probably going to up my battery up to 11.1 volt. It's a 1200 milliamp 30C. It's more than enough that should run most torque motors and give you a decent speed. I don't want too fast of a speed either because I'm trying to also preserve the gearbox a little bit, because not only we're going to be shooting roughly probably somewhere around 20 rounds per second, but also we're smacking that gearbox with the M130 spring. Now for the internals, I would obviously use since it's a version 2 gearbox, we'll be using an O-ring with an O-ring inside a nozzle, double O-ring cylinder head. Both of these are SHS. I use the Matrix 18:1 gear ratios, but really they're SHS also. And as you know, because the ARES Amoeba series use a magnet on the sector gear, we're only going to be using the spur gear and bevel gear, because the spur gear is one of the weakest in the Amoeba series. So as I've shown in other videos, I use SHS or Matrix 18:1 spur gears, and it strengthens it up by a tremendous amount. Now the CCP already has a ported 3/4 cylinder. I just wanted to show you the cylinder, because the VZ.58 actually has a full cylinder. It's not ported, so I'd recommend using a 3/4 cylinder, so that that you would kind of prevent that BB from leaving a shorter inner barrel prematurely. So as you do any readings, I mean, there's plenty of readings out there why you use a 3/4 port for inner barrels lower than 300 millimeter, is because the BBs will start leaving your inner barrel before the piston completely gets to the cylinder head, and you're going to get erratic BB speeds. Most of the parts on the CCP already has all this stuff, so I just wanted to show you how these individual parts look. So I'll be using my CCP with an Onyx A2 and 11.1 volt and the M130 spring and see what kind of FPS it would get. All right, here's the FPS portion. As you already know, my CCP is already modified. So what we did was we put in a Onyx A2 motor and an M130 spring, and we're using a 110 millimeter Prometheus inner barrel. So let's see what kind of FPS we're getting. The BBs we're using is Elite Force biodegradable 20 grams. 388.7, 390.8, 392.6, so it's roughly 390.2, shooting at 16.2 FPS. Right, the final thoughts segment. To conclude really quick, obviously the ARES CCP was able to get 390 FPS at 16.2 rounds per second. I kept the battery and the motor really conservative because I don't want to really break my gearbox, and plus I don't know how much voltage or amps I could really strain through the EFCS system. I've always used 7.4s on my Amoeba series, but handled it like a champ, so who knows, you know, I have to put a lot more rounds to see what's the longevity of it. Just be aware I didn't do the testing for the VZ.58 because there's a couple reasons. One, you don't have an air nozzle with an O-ring, and also you're very limited to the 7.4 volt battery, and it's really small. And yeah, you probably could make it shoot 400 FPS, but we're talking about you're going to be probably shooting 10 rounds per second. So if you guys really don't care about that 10 round per second, then hey, you know, all the power to you guys.